Okay, I'm back. I'm sitting here singing Lil Nas's Montero between sets. Here's the thing. I want to talk about Josh Duggar. So I'm spinning off a separate video altogether from my travel content. I'm going to go back and edit that out, I think. YouTube is not the most friendly place for me, unfortunately. Who am I and why was I following the Duggars? I was a writer for almost 10 years at Pathos on a blog called No Longer Quivering, or a column they were trying to make me say instead of a blog. And the Duggars were the royalty of Quiverfull. Josh is the crown prince. Hey, I'm back, trying again. I'm just as happy to spin the Josh Duggar stuff off separately. I don't like it polluting my travel things. So this morning, one of my friends on Facebook, one of my dear friends I love, sent me, hey Ashley, a link to a Sun article. If you don't know what the Sun is, it's a tabloid out of Britain that sometimes does clickbaity things and sometimes they say all kinds of crazy stuff. Sometimes they're right. I've got to give them, when the Sun and the Guardian did pieces on Josh's place where he was, in the place he was living, Reformers Anonymous, back during his last public spanking when he was caught with Ashley Madison. So there's that. Josh, as I was saying earlier, Josh has gone from not too terribly bad, looking at porn, to the weirdest stuff, apparently. And that's one of my few objections to porn, besides the fact that it routinely exploits women. If women are making porn and they're happy with it and that's what they've chosen to do, and no one is forcing them into the industry, that's one thing. Like Stormy Daniels, I don't think anyone has ever forced Stormy to do any of this stuff. She's done it because it makes money. So Stormy Daniels, woo-hoo, another Baton Rouge girl. So Josh, like I said, Josh reminds me of so many guys that I've met that start out on Pornhub looking for Amish girls' ankles and end up some really weird place with manatees and Martians and midgets, I guess. Not midgets, little people. That's what they were telling me to call them. Something like that. I think they want the photos. Okay. Josh apparently lost that round in court. The Sun is alleging that the photos of his hands, and you remember last month I said they wanted the photos of his hands to match the possible CP. Apparently they have matched his hands with some kind of distinctive scar on it to images on his computer. That's what the Sun is alleging. And if that's the case, he should have taken the plea deal they offered him. They offered him a plea deal of 10 years. He would have had to allocute and tell them what he did and didn't do and serve his 10 years and get out. I think that would have probably been wise. Right now, they've only filed 2 charges against him. I think those 2 charges, I was reading that the maximum is like 20 years or something each. So conceivably, he can get a lot of time. He does show his hubris. Well, here's the thing with Anna. She's blamed his arrest on Joe Biden. She's blamed his arrest on all sorts of things, including ignoring the fact that this investigation started under the previous guy, and now this guy is carrying it out. 2 administrations, 2 totally different administrations, one Republican, one Democrat, are involved in this and prosecuting him. So I don't think she can say I don't think she can really make a claim that this is political. This is political suicide. Her husband did these things. I don't know much, but I know with Homeland Security has a 97% conviction rate. They usually don't file charges until they have the whole thing sewed up. And one of the few things he did not have sewed up was matching his hands to possible CP. And like I said last month, they could do that based on vein patterns, on scars, on all sorts of things they can match. And that makes sense because one of the first things that the federal government did was said that anyone under 18 testifying gets a guardian ad litem, their name will be withheld, their testimony will be withheld. It's going to be closed chambers for those things. As well, it should be when you have people under 18 testifying, possible victims, possible witnesses, you have to do that. Now, there is a lady we all know that is claiming that those protections do not extend to his own children testifying. I can hardly see how that would be because they're underage and they need their own guardian ad litem to look out for their best legal interests, which are not the same as their father's legal interests. Yeah, the Duggars are not important enough for the president to watch or take them down. Oh, hey, Shaylee. Well, I hope you don't have to spend too much time in the car line. My husband's out right now, and it's a drag, I think. And here, one of the private schools I've seen is crazy. Their car line is just crazy. So what I think is going to happen with Josh is now that they've supposedly matched his hands and the scars to photos on his computer, I think that this is going to spell a whole long list of charges that haven't even been filed yet. I think the feds will probably file on those too and address those later down the line, or maybe just roll them into this lawsuit. And I think Josh's attorney is going to try to stall again. It's going to say, no, I need more time to prepare. If this is added, I need 6 months more. We may not see this for quite a long time. Guess that smirk of his is gone. I don't necessarily think that it is yet. I think that Josh still thinks that Daddy will buy him out of this. This is no big deal, that he has no responsibility, no culpability. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they're going to do with him. They're going to say, oh, he didn't do it. When all of us know damn good and well he probably did, if the federal government has all that evidence. And they've said this is one of the worst cases they've ever seen. Josh should have taken that deal. 10 years may be a drop in the bucket compared to what he could get, particularly now if they were actually able, as alleged, to match the photos on his computer to his hands. And if he sent those photos out and they're on other people's computers, they could get him also for, producing porn with minors. It's a pretty serious penalty. He may be going away. The question, according to his hands, do you think the hands are so important because they have video or something of Josh actually doing things to kids? I think they're going to try to postpone, Angel. I think so. And Small Town Jewel, the son is alleging that there's a match. There's a match between a scar in his hands and the images they found on his computer. The CP images, not just, happy vacation snaps that we all have on our computer or family photos, but actually the CP that he had there. They're alleging that it's there. Who the heck is trying to reach me now? Let me make sure this is not one of my kids having an epic. No, I can deal with this later. So I think Josh's life is over. He just doesn't realize it yet. He's so full of hubris. He thinks his father can get him out of anything. He thinks that nobody will say he's guilty. And so he's going to be smirking away. I have a feeling when he goes to court, he's going to be smirking at the judge and smirking at the jury, which is not going to play well with the jury or the judge. They're going to hold that against him as well. They should, because he really, if he did these things, and it looks pretty likely that he did, that's heinous. I mean, that's one of the worst, most evil things I've ever heard of. So we have to sit back and watch now. And it's hard because parts of this case will be private. And I'm pretty sure Jim Bob is probably going to try to file to make the entire thing a closed session, which it may be. It may end up being exactly that way. We just don't know. There's too much unknown at this time. I wish he were in jail and not at that house, which clearly has Ms. Reber uncomfortable with him. Yes, yes. The hands, they can match them. They have technology now where they can match your hands, the vein work, scars, and other things to CP images. They can match that because all these guys that are molesting kids, most of them, they'll shield their face, they'll wear a mask, they'll blur it out. But they never do their hands or feet. And the vein patterns of the hands and feet are as distinctive as the fingerprint and they are DNA. And so they're starting to use this in these cases to prove that these people are not just watching the CP and the destruction, but to prove they're participating in it, which like I said, brings a whole different, more awful set of charges. It may see him going to jail for life if that's what they do. If they've proven that, like the Sun is saying, and they file those additional charges, it won't go well. Can you see my previous comment? Just wondering if that's against the rules. Oh, let me see. No, I can't. I don't know where that is. No telling. YouTube works the rules of staying with the guardian. I don't know. Supposedly Anna stayed there with him quite a few times and left her children to her relatives. And, well, I think it's important that we support our spouse even when they're going through horrible stuff. It does not mean you get to excuse them and say, they're accusing him of horrible stuff. Like I said, I've had my own experience with that when my husband was accused of something pretty horrible, and it turned out it was not true. But in the meantime, they searched all of our electronics. They searched our house. They searched his car. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. The allegation by somebody that was angry with him in the classroom, somebody that he'd given a, what do you call that? Put them in after school timeout. Detention. They used the crime technology, the same technology they use for facial recognition, biometrics, and AI. Yes, they sure do. She's due soon. If she's had the baby, no, she can't bring the baby with her. He's not supposed to be around children except with her. And he's not supposed to be living in a house with children. Now, while she could probably bring the baby around, I think if she moved the baby in so she could breastfeed him while being with her husband, that would be a big no-no. But really with these things, you have to wait and see what the charges are and what evidence they have before you can decide whether your husband is innocent or guilty. And there would be no shame for Anna if she would just admit that he's guilty, that they have all this stuff, and still see him, still support him. I think everybody in the world would probably line up and say, Anna, we support you, because that's pretty horrible. I can't imagine what she's going through. She's one of the big victims of this thing. I don't know how she didn't know that he was doing these things. I don't know if and when he goes to prison, will she stay single the rest of her life? Or does she get to move on in this? Here's the thing about that. A lot of it will depend upon her church family and her family, her real family. I'm not talking about the Duggars. Debbie Pearl writes in her book, Created to be a Helpmeet, that if your husband is doing that to your children or other people's children, that you turn him into the police, you stand by him throughout the trial and everything, you visit him in jail, you bring the kids to visit him in jail, you support him in every way, shape, and form, and then when he comes back, you welcome him with open arms, and if you have to, you move somebody else if he has those kind of things. But you stay with him. So there's that pressure being put on her by various people in the Quiverfull movement are going to tell her you've got to stay with him regardless of what he does. He's your husband for now and all eternity. There's those folks. But I'm going to say I have seen this happen before in my old church, my old very quiverfull, very, you don't divorce for any reason. We had a lady whose husband was doing stuff to their eldest daughter, who was a teenager at the time. It finally came out. CPS intervened. They removed the daughter, of course, and the police came and arrested the husband. It took the wife a long time in her mind to wrap her mind around this, that he'd done this. And he went to jail because at first she said, no, no, no. She was just like Aunt Anna. She's like, I'm standing by him. I love him, blah, blah, blah. You will never, ever, 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 I'll never divorce him. Well, she did. But it took a long time. It took a lot of us talking to her. It took our pastor saying, hey, you know, when your husband does that to your child, you can divorce. He had to tell her, said, I doubt Jesus would have a problem with you divorcing your husband. And she finally did divorce him and move on. And she had another child that she protected from him. Even when he got out, he was not allowed to see either of the daughters or her divorce. It took time for the brainwashing to wear off. Yes, Angel, that's exactly what happens. Do you think the rumors are true that Anna and Jim Bob and Michelle are at odds? Yes. I think that Jim Bob with this is finally probably had his fill with Josh. Josh was the golden boy. He was the crown prince of Quiverfull for a long time, and they bailed him out of every trouble. They bailed him out. I think this may be the one that goes too far. I think it's caused not just dissension between Anna and the parents. I think between the parents and the rest of their kids. I mean, look the other day at Michelle. Michelle had her birthday. 2 of the kids posted on social media about that. 2. Used to be all of them posted, glowing, oh, Mom, you're the best things. 2 of them did. 2 out of 14? That's pretty crazy. I almost feel bad for her because that must really sting to be not regarded by your children on your birthday, and when they've done it so well in many years past. I feel kind of bad for them because they created Josh. They created this whole situation. They created this whole crazy thing that he's doing by their modesty R culture. Because modesty culture teaches people some very unhealthy attitudes about sexuality and about their bodies. And when they follow these dangerous things, they can go in some very weird places. I've seen this time and time again, but not to the extent that Josh has done it. I think because Josh has been allowed to skate every single time, he thought he'd pop a couple of Xanax, pose for that smirky mugshot, and deny, because he still denies it. He's tried to throw his brothers under the bus and everybody else that's worked for him and say, oh, it was probably them. They probably had all that. They probably downloaded it. The hands are going to convict him. They're going to convict him hard. He spent more dollars on him than any of the other kids, it seems. Yes, I think he spent more dollars on Josh altogether than he spent on the rest of them altogether. I really think that. And I think there's going to be hell to pay in years to come. I think we're going to see a tell-all book from somebody in that family. And the first one is going to be the one to make all the money. So let's see what happens. Probably more on Josh than all the kids combined. Yeah, I'm sure. Did you used to live in Northern Virginia? I do. Angel, yes, I did. I lived in Culpeper, Virginia, Culpeper County on the north side between Culpeper and Warrenton. I loved living there. I loved my house there. I was sad when my husband and I sold our house. I didn't want to sell it, but we tripled our money on it and we sold it in one weekend. We had 9 offers. So it went quickly, and I figured it would because we had really feathered our nest pretty hard in the years we lived here. My kids have lived in, not in Chantilly where you live, but we've had kids that have lived, our kids have lived in near George Mason. I had one child that lived on campus there. Recently, they were living in East Falls Church, and before that, they lived in, I can't remember the name of it. It's just outside of Manassas. Centerville. And lived in Centerville the longest, I think. Centerville. Jill is going to write that book. I hope so, Ashley, Claire. I hope so, because poor Jill has really suffered. And she is in therapy now. I hope she recovers, that poor child. She's the one I had the most sympathy for from the beginning of Josh and his troubles. Like when, what's his face? When Jim Bob went on the Megyn Kelly show, you could see she was brokenhearted and she could not stop crying. Jim Bob exposed her